sometimes my experiences are so out there that I consider not sharing them because they're way out there. But I will say this. One of the things that I have thought a lot about, and I've talked about this on this channel, is why it is that I have such access, being able to do astral projection, being able to do beyond body, and the other things, being able to connect with spirit beings when I reach that in-between place, that kind of stuff. Many things that I'm still discovering. I've really thought about it, and I do understand that I think one of the big reasons why I was given this kind of access is because I'm here to share it with you, especially those who may be experiencing things or who are going to experience things perhaps in the future. I am here to help. So even in experiences like this, I am going to share them. I will share this one, definitely. So, anyways, I am saying all this to say that what you are about to hear is extremely strange. But I want you to know, for those of you who are curious, that I know that a lot of people hear things on the internet, or they read things, they go to the subreddit, they see videos. I am here to tell you that there are things out there that are so foreign, that are so different from us, from our 3D reality, that our minds have an extremely difficult time grasping it, if it can. And in this situation, this experience, this is exactly what happened. So this experience this experience happened at sometime in the middle of the night, probably around 3 or 4 in the morning, maybe a bit later than that. Again, the reason why I didn't share it right off the bat is because I really had to consider sharing this. So I was laying down on my right side. I didn't have anything strange going on with background sound. I didn't have any storm sounds on. I think I may have had talk radio on just very slightly and very softly in the background, so I could barely hear it anyway. So I was laying down, and at some point I reached that middle place. When I say that middle place, for those of you who don't listen to my channel regularly, it is that place between being asleep and awake, what I call the sweet spot. It is the place where many things are possible. I can travel from that space, but I can also connect with and communicate with spirit beings. So the middle space, the sweet spot, is a very special thing. So I reached that space and I started to feel myself floating upwards. Now, there was no separation. And again, one of the differences I found in the beyond body is I don't feel separation. In contrast to to astral projection, where I definitely feel a separation. I can feel myself either rolling out of my body or floating up out of my body. I do not feel that with beyond body slash shifting. So I felt myself moving upwards. Now, at some point, I remember this now, I go into the void. I've been into the void multiple times. And again, the void for me is that feeling of like being in space, being weightless, feeling like I'm in the womb and I'm turning and I'm starting to feel that feeling. But above me, guys, this was different. This was different. There were the only thing I can really describe, the only way I can really describe them, at first I thought of them as stars, but they were different shapes. One of, I believe my subscribers had asked me about seeing geometric symbols. When I was explaining this experience to my mother and I was trying to really tell her about the shapes I saw that were above me, that were glowing, I was trying to kind of describe, I was telling her, Mom, I don't know how to describe this to you, because the shapes, I could see them, but it was beyond my ability to be able to say, it's this shape, it's this. It was so alien, so foreign, that I wasn't able to grasp what it was that I was seeing. What I know, or at least what I perceived, was that these objects were all together, they were clustered together, and they were directly above me. And then beyond that, I believe, was the void, but they were shining so brightly in the void. I think they were creating this light. And so it was unusual for me because, again, in the void, it's usually, each time I've been there, it's usually just pitch black. So I'm looking at this and I'm in the air and I'm floating and I'm just like very happy. I have this feeling in the pit of my stomach. It's just like a very joyful, very happy feeling. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this, and then, guys, I drop. Now, this pattern that happens with the void happens consistently. And I'm beginning to think that this is the way it happens, though my mind is still open for me to transition in a different way, because you always have to keep your mind open. But pretty much each time I've experienced the void, this is what has happened. I go up in the air, I'm turning for a while, and then I dropped. And yes, I dropped, and I found myself in a room. Now, like other times, I found myself to be really tiny in this room, like a shrunken person. And then suddenly, as I'm standing there in this room and feeling like, oh my gosh, everything's so big, I grow, I expand, I get bigger until I'm an appropriate size, which is what happened. So I'm looking around, and the first thing, of course, one of the things that I do when I go into these places nowadays, especially if it's as far off as it is usually when I go through the void. And by the way, when I transport through the void to a different reality, it usually means for me that the reality is really, really, really far off. There are closer realities to this one that I have experienced, but when I go through the void and I transport that way, that means it's way, way out there. So I'm looking around this room and I use a word when I'm way out there. And I'll use one word to describe where I am, because there are so many instances where when I go really far away, it's difficult for me to remember. So the first thought in my mind was a boy's room, like maybe a teenager's room. That's the sense I got. All of the things on the wall, everything around me reminded me of maybe a teen, or it was definitely not an adult. Now remember, I want you to remember that I'm simply perceiving this. This is, to my belief, a translation. My mind is translating what it's seeing and coming as close to what it is that it can. But what I've come to understand from my travels is that there are places and there are things that I may come into contact with that go far beyond my ability, my 3D mind's ability to be able to understand it. So I'm looking around, and this looks like a teenager's room, probably a boy's room, posters, all these types of things. One of the first things I decided I wanted to do was I wanted to start touching things and kind of confirming, feeling some stuff to see if it's solid. And I believe I took hold of something. I don't remember what it was. I was squeezing it to see, is this thing solid? And it was. Whatever it was that I was touching was solid. Now, this part is going to be difficult to talk about because one of the things that I never want to do on this channel, I'm very careful about this, is to scare anyone or to make people feel like they're afraid. What I'm going to tell you and the fear that I'm going to talk about simply stems from the fact that I didn't understand what was going on. And as I go through this, I'm going to explain why I didn't understand what was going on. Now, when I was touching stuff, feeling things, someone to my side, don't remember if it was my left or my right side, someone took my hand. And I could feel it. I could feel someone taking my hand and holding on to my hand. Now, I'm not going to say, I can't recall whether they were pulling me or not. I don't think they were pulling me, but I could feel a hand, and it was startling to me. I'm like, who is that? I didn't see it. I thought I was alone in this room, but someone had taken my hand, and I couldn't see at first who it was. But what I saw next is something that I don't think I've ever really seen. So, as I said, I believe I just said this. I was standing near a bed, and there was someone holding on to my hand. And what I noted, the only way I can really describe this to you is I want you to look at your bed for a second. Take a second to look at your bed. I want you to imagine that a section, not the whole bed, I want to make sure I emphasize this, not the whole bed, but a section of the bed stood up as if there was a slice of it stood up and took a form. Now, it still looked like sort of like a piece of the bed, or it had the same kind of look, like blanket, part of the, the mattress, whatever, but it was in a human form. Now, that's the only way I can describe it. It was the strangest thing. It is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. And that was what was holding my hand. And I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Now, at this point, my thought is that my mind, okay, so I'm going to explain this to you guys. My belief is that my mind couldn't come up with whatever it was that it was perceiving. So it was like, okay, I don't know what this is. This is the closest I can come. It's a piece of this bed, and it got up. Now, when I was sharing this with my mom talked about something that she thought was, by the way, when she said this, it made sense to me. If I'm perceiving it as a bed, the translation could be relaxation, sleep. So wherever this place was, as far off as this place was, perhaps it was a place where beings come to rest. What these beings are, who they are, I have no idea. I don't know what these beings could be, but maybe that could be the case. Anyway, when I saw this, I immediately pulled my hand away. I'm like, what in the universe is that? I don't know what this thing is. So it's getting up and it's coming toward me. And now I'm also beginning to see in other sections of the bed that there are other beings. And again, they all look like it all looks like a piece of the bed is standing up and is in human form and is starting to come toward me. Now, I told you, I think in my last experience, that I had some sort of ability with telekinesis. Like I could, basically move things with my mind. Instinctively, I extended my hand toward these beings that were coming up, that were cropping up, and it was holding them. So through this telekinetic ability, I was holding them down. At the same time, guys, at the same time that this is all happening, I'm backing away slowly. I'm backing away because I also realized and understood and saw that there is a door. There's a door, and I'm thinking to myself, if I can get to the door before these things come at me, then I'll be good. So I'm backing off slowly towards the door. I reach with my other hand, and I grab the doorknob, and I'm able to open the door, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness. All right, the beings are still struggling to get up. And by the way, guys, I once I got kind of out of the door, I then thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna get the heck out of here. So I quickly, once I was out the door, I turned and then I shut the door and I took off. So it was pretty crazy. Now, the rest of this experience was walking down this hallway, and it was dark and I couldn't see much. So I returned shortly after that. But what I want to emphasize to you guys, there's a couple of things I want to emphasize before I end this episode. And again, I want to talk about one of the things being the fact that we fear what we don't understand. And I'm sure you've heard that one before, but this is a big deal. And I really want you to listen to this. We fear what we don't understand. And that was why I was afraid. These beings may have just simply been curious because I looked probably as strange to them as they looked to me, if you consider that. So they may have been curious, or they may have been thinking to themselves, well, maybe this being wants to rest, and they took the form that they thought I would understand and I would be able to relax with, which wasn't the correct form for me to relax, because it freaked me out because I've never seen anything quite like that before. So that's number one. And number two, I want you guys to be prepared for those of you who want to have these experiences, okay? For those of you who want to have astral projection experiences, that want to have beyond body / shifting experiences, I want you to understand that there are things out there that are so foreign, so different from us, that it could be scary to you if you're not understanding it, okay? So you have to keep that in mind, guys. You really do. And again, I am speaking because I've had these experiences. It doesn't mean that you're going to have these experiences. You'll probably have completely different experiences, but I suspect that you will bump into some things that are quite strange as well. Anyway, I hope you found this experience to be interesting, and I'm hoping that it was helpful. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. And until next time, take care.